In the animal kingdom, intelligence has evolved in many different ways in many different creatures. The level of intelligence varies between the species, but scientists have found that the New Caledonian crow is the most intelligent.
Scientists fed thousands of hours of crow sounds into a new AI program, expecting to find nothing special, just normal bird noise. But what the AI sent back surprised everyone. It found patterns, meaning, and even what looked like real messages hiding in their calls. It suggested that crows aren't just making random sounds. They're watching us, talking about us, and remembering what we do. And now, for the first time, we're finally getting a peek at what they've been saying all along. Ready to decode these tricky birds? Let's do it. Not an ordinary bird. For years, most people thought crow sounds were nothing more than rough caws, squawks, and noisy chatter that all blended together. Even some scientists used to brush them off as background noise, but a few curious researchers weren't convinced. They believed something deeper was going on, and they spent years trying to figure it out. These were the people who stood in fields before sunrise, sat on rooftops with recording gear, and waited in forests for hours just to understand what these birds were saying. They weren't looking for anything groundbreaking. They were simply following a hunch that crows had more to share than we realized. One of the most well-known scientists in this field is a researcher from the University of Washington who spent years studying how crows recognize human faces. His experiment was simple. He walked around wearing a specific mask while handling crows in a way the birds definitely didn't enjoy. The reaction that followed was surprising. The crows remembered his face. They warned each other about him. They even passed this warning to younger crows who weren't alive during the original incident. Soon, entire neighborhoods of crows were scolding anyone wearing that same mask, even if it was a completely different person underneath. It was the first clear hint that crows were sharing very specific information, not just making noise. Other scientists around the world joined in with their own studies. In Germany, a group focused on recording the tiny differences in crow calls, the little shifts in rhythm, pitch, and timing that most human ears skip over. In Japan, researchers watched crows using traffic lights to crack nuts, waiting for cars to run over their food before swooping in at the perfect moment. In Canada, field ecologists noticed how crow groups seemed to have a system for assigning lookouts, almost like a rotating security team. And in every country where these studies took place, the same pattern kept showing up. Crows weren't acting randomly. They were making decisions with purpose, and they seemed to communicate those decisions to each other. As recording technology got better, more crow calls were captured in higher quality. Some researchers built setups that ran day and night, picking up every sound from dawn arguments to late-night murmurs. Others placed microphones near nests, resting sites, and busy feeding spots. Over the years, these efforts created massive libraries of crow audio, hundreds of hours at first, then thousands, then tens of thousands. To human ears, it all sounded like endless cawing. But deep down, many scientists suspected they were collecting something important, even if they didn't yet know how to read it. That's where the AI came in. Originally, the plan was simple. The AI model would sort the recordings into categories: feeding calls, alarm calls, territorial calls, and so on. Nothing fancy, just basic pattern sorting. But the moment the model started analyzing the audio, it found something no one expected. Instead of general categories, it detected small repeated sound patterns that seemed to act like markers. These weren't random noises. They showed up in certain situations, over and over, even when the recordings came from different places and different groups of crows. The AI flagged these sounds as consistent identifiers, meaning they always appeared when crows were reacting to the same person or the same event. At first, the scientists didn't believe it. They thought the AI was mixing up background noises or creating patterns that weren't real. So they cross-checked. They lined up video recordings with the audio and watched the crows while the flagged sounds occurred. The results were almost creepy. Whenever a certain man walked by, a man who was known for feeding them scraps, the same set of sounds appeared in the recordings. When an aggressive dog approached the area, the birds used another set of repeated sounds. Even more surprising, groups in other neighborhoods made nearly identical noises when reacting to the same kinds of humans. It was as if the crows had a shared system for talking about us. This discovery pushed more scientists to join the project. They placed identifying tags on individual crows, tracked them with GPS, and compared movement patterns to the audio data. They found that when one crow spotted trouble, neighboring crows reacted within minutes, even if they weren't close enough to hear the original call. Somehow, the message traveled. Sometimes the warning spread across several blocks, sometimes across entire towns. As the recordings piled up, the AI picked out even more structure. It noticed how crows used slightly different tones when calling to family members versus strangers. It noticed that older crows repeated certain calls when teaching younger ones what to avoid. It found that groups had gathering calls that brought everyone together when a crow died, almost like a meeting. And in those gatherings, the sounds changed again, more varied, more detailed, almost like sharing the story of what happened. The AI wasn't claiming that crows spoke a human-style language, but the patterns were too deliberate to ignore. There were introductions, warnings, reminders, and what looked like corrections. If one crow gave the wrong information, the next one called back with a slightly different pattern, almost like saying, "No, that's not right. Here's what actually happened." The researchers realized they weren't looking at simple animal cries anymore. They were staring at a communication system, built and refined over generations, shaped by survival and sharp memory. One of the most chilling discoveries came when the AI analyzed calls made in response to new human faces. It found that the birds often created a new sound, a unique marker, when they encountered a person they had never seen before. And if that person did something noteworthy, like feeding them or threatening them, that marker stuck. Other crows later repeated it. The marker traveled, and slowly, the scientists understood what they were seeing. Crows weren't just reacting to people, they were labeling them. And if crows can label us, that means they can track us. If they can track us, that means they can talk about us. And if they've been doing this for generations, then the world has been carrying a secret we never knew existed. To understand why crows communicate in this surprisingly detailed way, we need to look at what makes them so incredibly smart in the first place. You might get shocked how witty these birds are. The crow brain. Crows aren't just clever for birds, they're clever for anything short of humans. If you've ever watched one solve a puzzle, remember a face, or figure out a way to steal snacks without getting caught. You know what I mean? Their brains are small, sure, but packed with neurons like a tiny supercomputer. Scientists call this density mind-boggling, because it's what allows them to plan ahead, remember events for years, and even solve problems that would confuse a dog, a cat, or a toddler. Every little caw, every glance, every careful step across a street is calculated, observed, and remembered. Part of their smarts comes from how their brains are built. Unlike mammals, crows don't have a neocortex, but they have something functionally similar called the Nidopallium caudolateral, or NCL for short. You don't need to remember that name, just know it's the part of their brain that handles planning, learning, memory, and decision-making. This tiny structure packs in neurons at a density similar to primates, giving crows problem-solving skills that surprise even seasoned scientists. It's why a crow can figure out a multi-step puzzle with tools, while a nearby bird just flaps in confusion. Crows are also shaped by evolution in a way that demanded intelligence. Their ancestors had to survive ice ages, hunt in packs, compete with other birds, and adapt to whatever humans threw at them. The ones that could remember threats, plan ahead, or notice patterns survived. The ones that couldn't, didn't. That pressure created a brain wired for observation and memory. Add in their social lives, alliances, rivalries, parenting, play, and you get a bird that not only survives but thrives through thinking, strategy, and communication. Even their bodies support their brains. Their beaks are versatile tools, capable of picking up tiny insects, cracking nuts, or even shaping sticks to dig for food. Their wings allow them to hover, swoop, and glide with precision, letting them observe humans, cars, and other animals carefully before making a move. Their eyes are almost unnervingly sharp. They can spot the smallest gestures from 100 feet away. All of this gives them the perfect combination: brains that can think and bodies that can act with purpose. Their intelligence isn't just about getting food. Crows are masters of social learning. They teach their young how to handle tricky situations, like recognizing which humans are friendly and which are dangerous. In Japan, researchers watched crows use traffic to crack nuts, teaching younger birds to wait for cars to roll over them before swooping in. In the United States, crows were observed using small sticks to fish insects out of tree bark, sometimes modifying the stick to make it work better. They can plan steps ahead, remember what worked, and even watch each other to improve their technique. Every interaction is a learning opportunity. Crows also understand relationships in ways that surprise scientists. They recognize individuals not just of their own species, but humans, dogs, and other animals. They remember who is trustworthy and who poses a threat. A bird that's been mistreated can hold a grudge for years, even alerting others in its community. Families of crows stay close and share knowledge, forming small networks of intelligence. It's as if they've built mini civilizations in plain sight, constantly observing, recording, and teaching each other the rules of the world. The way they communicate supports all this intelligence. Crows have a remarkable range of sounds: caws, clicks, rattles, squawks, even subtle subharmonics humans can barely hear. Each sound can carry a different meaning, depending on context, pitch, or sequence. In some cases, a single call can signal danger, call for help, or mark a specific location. Scientists now know these aren't just random noises. They're part of a sophisticated system that allows crows to share information quickly and efficiently. And with memory like theirs, messages can persist over years, reaching new generations who weren't even alive when the message started. Their intelligence also includes what researchers call theory of mind, meaning they can anticipate what another animal is thinking or likely to do. If a human who has been aggressive approaches, a crow might hide, scold, or even gather friends for backup. If a bird sees another figuring out a puzzle, it will watch and learn, rather than attempt the same trial-and-error process blindly. This ability to think about what others are thinking is rare in the animal kingdom. Only a handful of species, like primates, dolphins, and elephants, do anything like it. Yet crows do it every day, all around us, mostly unnoticed. Another factor is adaptability. Crows live in cities, forests, mountains, and coasts. They eat almost anything, avoid cars and humans, and can figure out complicated tasks just by watching what works. In urban areas, they have been seen dropping hard-shelled foods onto roads so cars will crack them open, then swooping down to eat the prize. They can remember the safest place to land, the best time to strike, and the humans who won't chase them away. This combination of intelligence, observation, and memory is what makes them perfect candidates for the kind of communication network that AI has now started to decode. Crows aren't just smart. They're the kind of smart that blends curiosity, strategy, social awareness, and memory into one unstoppable package. Their brains, bodies, and social structures all work together to create an intelligence that feels human-like in its planning and learning, but uniquely crow. They notice details we often ignore, remember interactions we forget, and communicate knowledge in ways we're only beginning to understand. They are living proof that intelligence doesn't require language, opposable thumbs, or classrooms. It just needs a brain that pays attention, a community that shares information, and an environment that rewards cleverness. And if crows are this smart, it starts to make sense why their communication system is so complex. The crow talk. When the AI finally finished analyzing thousands of hours of crow recordings, the results were, well, shocking. For decades, humans had thought crow calls were random, reactive, or simple warnings about predators. What the AI revealed, however, was more like a sophisticated broadcast network, complete with structure, repetition, and surprising precision. It seemed that every squawk, rattle, and caw could carry a piece of information, and the birds were using these calls to track events, people, and even other animals. Suddenly, the world of crows didn't seem so chaotic anymore. It had rules, purpose, and meaning. The AI grouped the calls into patterns, and what it found again and again was consistency. Certain calls appeared whenever a specific human or animal was nearby. Some calls were linked to feeding routines. Others signaled threats. More astonishingly, the AI noticed what it called identity markers, unique sequences that identified particular humans. If a person regularly fed crows or had a history of aggression, the crows assigned them a recognizable acoustic tag. And these tags weren't kept secret. They were broadcast repeatedly to other crows in the area. In other words, every crow who heard the call instantly knew who was coming and what to expect. The AI also detected a kind of syntax, almost like grammar. Some sequences acted like verbs, describing an action, while others served as subjects, referring to a specific person, animal, or event. There were modifiers, too, variations that added urgency, caution, or reassurance. For example, a call could translate roughly to "tall human, wearing dark jacket, carries food, approach with caution." Another could say, "aggressive human, throwing stones, avoid area." It wasn't language as humans understand it, but it was a consistent system designed to share detailed information efficiently. And because crows have excellent memory, these messages could last for years. Even stranger, the AI picked up on conversational sequences. Crows often responded to each other's calls, correcting or confirming information. If one bird made an error, like misidentifying a friendly person as a threat, another might respond with a slightly different pattern, effectively saying, "No, that's not right." These sequences happened not just in immediate proximity, but across neighborhoods, meaning that information could spread quickly through a larger network of birds. Essentially, the AI suggested that crows were running a social information network, transmitting knowledge about humans and the environment across time and space. One particularly striking example came from a small town where residents regularly fed a group of crows. The AI found that calls made whenever the feeder approached were repeated later in the day, and even the next week, sometimes by crows that hadn't seen the person directly. The implication was that the birds were passing along what we might call a reputation, positive, in this case, through a network that extended far beyond immediate contact. Conversely, crows also spread warnings about people who were aggressive, unpredictable, or dangerous. A child who threw rocks at birds might be labeled as a threat, not just to that neighborhood, but to nearby areas as well. The AI also detected emotional cues hidden in the calls. Urgent, repeated notes suggested alarm, while softer, more melodic sequences indicated curiosity or reassurance. Morning gatherings, where crows would come together around a dead member, contained what looked like detailed storytelling. In these moments, crows appeared to communicate what happened, why it happened, and even who was involved. The AI's analysis suggested that these birds weren't merely reacting emotionally, they were sharing information, confirming facts, and teaching lessons to others. It was as if they had their own news network, recording, editing, and broadcasting stories. Some calls were tied to territory and navigation, marking areas as safe, dangerous, or contested. Others indicated resource availability, where food could be found or avoided. Remarkably, these calls weren't limited to one group of crows. Neighboring groups seemed to pick up on patterns and adjust their behavior accordingly, a sign of intergroup communication that humans rarely expected in birds. It wasn't just survival, it was coordination. The AI's output painted a picture of crows actively managing information in ways that were methodical, adaptive, and surprisingly organized. Perhaps most unsettling for humans, the AI suggested that crows are tracking behaviors, not just static events. Your daily routines, the way you handle trash, the gestures you make while feeding them, even your reaction when a crow stares at you, all of it could be recorded in their network. Over time, repeated observations build a profile that other crows can access. It's like a living diary of human behavior, curated by birds and shared silently among them. And because these calls persist and are passed on, a single interaction with a crow could echo for years, shaping your reputation in ways you'll never know. In short, the AI didn't just find noise. It found a sophisticated communication network designed to convey identity, intention, location, and reputation. It suggested that crows had been observing humans long before anyone considered them more than pests or background wildlife. They weren't just passive bystanders, they were active participants, taking notes, sharing stories, and creating a record of our lives. What had seemed like random cause was actually a detailed, ever-updating social map of the humans around them. This discovery raises all sorts of questions. Were crows always this organized, or did they become more sophisticated as they adapted to human environments? How much do they remember? And how far can this information travel through their network? Most importantly, what does it mean for humans to be unknowingly cataloged by creatures we've long dismissed as ordinary birds? If crows can track us, share information, and even pass judgment, the next question becomes impossible to ignore. What exactly are they saying about us, and how do they see the humans who walk through their world? Message to humans. If you think crows are just making noise for no reason, think again. The AI's findings suggest that crows are not only aware of us, they have opinions. They notice who feeds them, who threatens them, and who simply ignores them. Over time, these observations form a kind of reputation system that spreads quietly from crow to crow. A person who tosses a few crumbs into the air might gain a friendly profile, while someone who throws rocks, chases birds, or waves a stick earns the kind of warning calls that travel far beyond the original encounter. Crows are especially good at remembering faces. It isn't just about recognizing a person for a few days. They can remember humans for years, and they communicate their impressions to others. If a neighbor is generous, young crows will learn about that before they even meet the person. Conversely, a hostile human can be tagged in a way that other crows understand immediately. These aren't vague generalizations, they are specific identities attached to behavior. The AI even detected subtle variations in calls that seemed to indicate approval, caution, or danger, suggesting that crows can assign emotional value to their observations. Essentially, they are judging us, and they are telling each other exactly what they think. Daily routines matter too. The way you walk down the street, your timing, even your gestures can influence your crow profile. Someone who always takes the same route to work might become predictable in the eyes of a local crow network. A person who changes behavior suddenly, maybe because they are carrying food or acting aggressively, can trigger warnings that ripple through nearby flocks. It's almost like a real-life social media feed, except you're the subject. The posts are warnings or compliments, And the audience is an entire crow community. And unlike human networks, crows don't forget, and they don't stop spreading the news. Feeding crows comes with its own risks. If you toss them snacks inconsistently, the AI analysis suggests they might judge you as unreliable. Crows prefer predictability. They thrive on patterns. So even if you mean well, your habits can affect how the birds view you. In some studies, birds avoided people who were friendly one day and frightening the next. This shows that their social evaluation isn't just instinctive. It's thoughtful, adaptive, and long-lasting. They are constantly updating their database on the humans around them, adjusting their behavior, and teaching younger birds to do the same. Aggressive behavior from humans is even more carefully cataloged. A person who threatens crows might be labeled with warning calls that persist for years, traveling from one group to another. In some cases, these warnings even extend across neighborhoods. Imagine a town where a single misstep, throwing a rock at a bird, follows you invisibly through the air as crows silently communicate about you. The AI detected sequences that could almost be read like stories. This person is dangerous. Avoid them. Warn the young. For a species that can fly, hide, and move quickly, these warnings are incredibly efficient, giving them the advantage of early preparation. Crows also observe other animals and human tools. They note dogs that chase them, cars that roll over food, and even humans using umbrellas or hats. Each object, action, and behavior can be woven into their calls, creating detailed reports that other crows understand. It's not just survival, it's active record-keeping. They track the world around them in ways humans rarely notice, turning even mundane actions into information worth sharing. They can assign meaning to objects, gestures, and routines, which makes them seem far more aware than we often give them credit for. Some of the most fascinating aspects are their social and moral judgments. Crows are not only aware of who is good or bad, but they also seem to recognize fairness, generosity, and harm. A person who shares food or acts kindly might become a positive figure in their network, celebrated through repeated calls. Someone cruel or erratic gets a negative label, discussed and passed on. And because crows are social learners, this information is reinforced every time a new bird enters the flock. Their reputation system grows, adapts, and persists, almost like a living encyclopedia of human behavior. It's not hard to imagine how this could look from above. A crow perched on a tree might glance down at a quiet street, noting a familiar face. Nearby, another bird responds, passing along the message. Across the block, a young crow listens and remembers, storing this information for the future. Over time, a human unknowingly becomes a character in a silent, invisible story told among crows. Each action, no matter how small, contributes to a narrative that can last for years. If crows can watch, judge, and spread information about humans with this level of detail, the final question becomes inevitable. What does this mean for the future? And how should we think about a world where we are never truly unseen? The discovery in the natural world. We've long assumed that animals operate on instinct alone, that they live in a simple, reactive bubble. The AI analysis shows something very different. Crows are organized, observant, and social in ways that rival some primates. They record, communicate, and even teach their young about humans. In a sense, we've been living under the gaze of a silent network of witnesses, and most of us had no idea. This raises questions we haven't considered before. Are crows capable of something like a language, even if it isn't verbal in our sense? How much of our daily behavior is cataloged and remembered by creatures we've dismissed as background noise? Some scientists are already debating whether the level of intelligence and communication displayed by crows requires us to rethink their place in the natural hierarchy. If dolphins and primates can earn certain ethical considerations because of their intelligence, Shouldn't crows, who can plan, learn, and communicate across generations, also earn a closer look? The technology itself could have exciting uses beyond simply decoding bird sounds. Imagine a real-time crow translator that could help humans understand what the birds are observing, or AI systems that track environmental changes based on crow activity. Since crows are often the first to notice danger, like a predator in the area, a fire, or even human threats, they could act as early warning systems. Their natural surveillance could be turned into a tool for humans, creating a new kind of cooperation between species. The idea isn't science fiction. It's a real possibility that builds on centuries of observation and thousands of hours of recorded behavior. But there's also a more unsettling side. If crows have the ability to assign reputations and pass warnings about us, then the world is far less private than we like to think. Our routines, gestures, and interactions are all recorded and shared in a network beyond our awareness. That means every encounter, every action, could have consequences we never imagined. Not legal consequences, but social ones in a system we can't see. In a strange way, crows have been cataloging human behavior long before surveillance cameras, social media, or any of our modern tools existed. Yet, there's hope in this discovery too. Understanding crows' intelligence and communication could inspire a more respectful, mindful relationship with nature. Humans have often assumed that intelligence and value belong only to our species, but crows challenge that notion. They show us that thinking, planning, and social learning can exist in forms we barely understand. By paying attention to them, we might learn lessons about observation, patience, memory, and even community. In their own way, crows could teach us humility, creativity, and the importance of paying attention to details we often overlook. The philosophical implications are also worth considering. If other species can observe and interpret us, perhaps our sense of human exceptionalism is misplaced. Crows have had a front-row seat to our lives for centuries, silently cataloging and judging in ways we never imagined. They've witnessed our triumphs, our mistakes, and our mundane routines, and they've shared that information among themselves. They are storytellers, archivists, and commentators, all rolled into one black-feathered package that flies unnoticed above our heads. It's a humbling thought that our daily lives, which often feel private and small, are part of a network we can't see or control. Because of future studies, that's just perhaps the tip of the iceberg. To uncover hidden secrets of the natural world, don't forget to hit subscribe.